And Rogue Sun issue number 2 is written by Ryan Parrott, with art by Abel and Francesco Mortarino, colors by Chris O'Halloran, and letters by Becca Carey. And this issue begins with Dylan locked into combat against a werewolf-vampire hybrid who, despite Dylan's best efforts, completely trashes Dylan and prepares for the kill until the sun comes up and forces the monster to run. Dylan, this entire time, had also been talking to the consciousness of his father Marcus, who has been trying to guide Dylan, but Dylan doesn't want to hear anything from him, and once Dylan gets back home, simply powers down to make him go away. He then goes downstairs and has a conversation with his mother, who is concerned for Dylan's well-being and future, and makes him promise to take his studies seriously. Dylan agrees before we cut to him at school, forcing a kid to give Dylan his homework in exchange for not bullying him. Later that night, Dylan returns to what used to be his father's mansion to see his half-sister Ari about turning Marcus off while Dylan is in the suit. There's then a quick discourse with Brock, who decrees that it should have been him who inherited the powers, noting how Dylan is ignoring the call before storming off. Ari returns to their previous conversation and says Marcus is the only one who can shut himself down. We then transition to Dylan on his way home when Marcus is forcing himself to talk, warning Dylan to duck. Suddenly, the werewolf vampire throttles the car and prepares to kill Dylan, of which Dylan is luckily able to transform. The fight is immediately swung out of Dylan's favor when Marcus appears in front of him, admitting the real reason he chose Dylan to be Rogue Sun is because he has no emotional attachment to him, and if he wants to live, to hit him as hard as he can. Marcus, of course, had used this moment to be in front of the creature, so Dylan finally got some hits in and manages to pummel the creature into submission. Dylan is instructed to call Ari, who arrives and tells Dylan the monster will be taken to a containment facility. Ari then quickly asks Dylan if her father is there, and although Marcus instructs Dylan to say no, Dylan instead repeats Marcus's words. It's then that Dylan flies off, heading to the top of a building, and making a deal with Marcus that if Dylan helps find Marcus's killer, that Marcus will teach Dylan everything about being a superhero, to which Dylan makes a final stipulation that once he does that, Marcus will willingly leave. There's then a quick epilogue where Suave, without his helmet, is talking to something covered by a sheet, informing his master that Rogue Sun is indeed dead. A strange spider then emerges from behind the sheet, of which Suave eats it. Okay, not bad. I can definitely start off by saying one of the things that I am enjoying about this book is the fact that Dylan actually sucks at being a superhero. It's actually kind of refreshing, the fact that he lost not once, but twice since he's been Rogue Sun, and realistically only surviving based on certain technicalities. Like with Suave, he has this whole thing where, yeah, I don't really like to kill people, and with this werewolf vampire hybrid, the sun just kind of came up. And even still, if his dad's consciousness inside the suit didn't intervene in any way, Dylan probably would have been killed by the end of this issue. And I will say, it is also nice to get some context to the end of the previous issue where Marcus showed up, because the minute he did, I was kind of wondering, okay, he died. Is it a ghost, a clone? Did he just pretend to die? Then you find out that he's basically like just the consciousness of Marcus that exists within the suit. I guess the suit just sort of like, read his brainwave patterns from, however many years he was Rogue Sun before his death. Basically just a really advanced AI system. And one of the things that makes their interaction so interesting is the fact that Dylan wants nothing to do with Marcus. It's like, you've been a deadbeat dad my whole life. I didn't know you. You didn't know me. So, why do you care, effectively? Then, of course, we get the explanation and revelation for why Marcus did leave Dylan the Rogue Sun suit and powers. And that is because he doesn't care. Marcus downright says, I picked you because someone tried to kill me, therefore I'm worried someone is coming after my family, and with you, I don't know you. Therefore, I got no emotional attachments if you do indeed die. To which I'm just sitting there like, man, that is cold. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how Dylan even feels about all that, where it's just like, the dad you never knew, never really liked, and then you find out that, yeah, he's about as bad as you thought, and actually in some ways worse. I mean, we come to find out he didn't exactly have, a close relationship with his other kids either, but there was more time spent with them. So yeah, there's definitely more of a, father to children connection going on there. And one of the ways we get to see this is after Ari is helping Dylan, do everything with the cleanup on the monster and whatnot, and then she asks him, hey, is my dad here? And the dad's like, nope, just tell her I'm not here, because you can tell he doesn't want to, make her feel bad about anything. But of course, Dylan takes this opportunity to just be like, oh yeah, no, he's here, he just doesn't want to talk to you. Because I can definitely see that Dylan hates his dad so much, he would like it if his other kids just hated him too. It's like, if I can't have it, then you definitely can't have it. And speaking of Ari, one of the things I liked about this issue is getting to see her interaction with Dylan, because she's constantly trying to defend Marcus in some way, and also trying to sympathize with Dylan a little bit, saying, yeah, I mean, my dad missed, one of my birthday parties, but then, shortly after, he came to my room and was like, hey, I'm Rogue's son, so yeah, I'm not always gonna be around, especially at some critical moments during, your growth where you might want me there. But then, of course, Dylan just waves that all off, and he's just snarky back to her, and it's just all like, oh, well, aren't we special? To which, at that point, I did like the fact that she was able to make that comparison with Dylan, saying that despite him never being raised by Marcus, never meeting his father, that he was actually a lot more like him than even Dylan would care to admit. Oh, and it was also this scene in the mansion that started to make me become even more suspicious of Brock. Like, he's a kid who definitely feels scorned. He is very sour at not being left the Rogue Son power. And to me, he does come off like a kid who would totally sell his dad out if it would get him killed and he'd get that power. Or perhaps this is all just misdirection. As far as things I dislike about the book, I'm still not really on board with the whole Dylan being a bully thing. I get that it's, a characterization so that, we can see his growth as the issues progress. But until we get to that point, I'm still left with the feeling that, Dylan kind of sucks. But just watching Dylan, tower over this kid, threaten him, it's just very unbecoming of a superhero. And of course you have Byron next to him, which still makes me really confused about their relationship, because as far as the first issue goes, and he was putting Byron in the locker, and it's sort of one of those deals where, yeah, Dylan's now trying to leverage this new kid the same way he, leveraged threats of violence against Byron. But then even in the first issue, there was like a scene where they're walking down the hallway and talking as if they were friends. And here Dylan's talking to Byron and Byron's talking to Dylan again, almost as if they were friends. Because I'm pretty sure a kid being bullied would not want to hang around said bully. And even to further kind of get down into the whole, maybe Dylan will change at some point, I also do gotta wonder, how many times is this kid gonna get totally bodied before he does learn some humility? Because again, he's been faced with death twice, and almost a third time if it wasn't, for his dad helping him. He's already seen that he's not the baddest dude on the block. And I'm all for teen arrogance and stubbornness, but damn, come on now. After being proven ineffective so many times, it's like, yeah, you might want to start learning how to use the power, way more efficiently than you currently do. Because as stubborn as Dylan is, I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to die. But now let's talk about the best aspect about this comic book, and that is the werewolf vampire hybrid who is also a southern redneck. I mean, the book could have just left it at werewolf vampire hybrid and we would have been fine. But instead, the book had to throw in that he was a redneck. And of course, they're in Louisiana, so yeah. And that also means that when the character is having dialogue, I'm sitting there in my head imagining this, sort of Louisiana kind of southern accent going on. And it just makes it so freaking funny. Like, I totally feel like this is something Jeff Foxworthy could make a joke out of. If your favorite hunting dogs include members of your own clan, you might be a redneck werevamp. If it's mating season and your sister is your first choice, you might be a redneck werevamp. If you spit out blood you're drinking because the proof is too low, you might be a redneck werevamp. So I'm just saying, Ryan Parrott, if you ever see this, we need that spinoff ASAP. When it comes to the art, I really like it. It's got good flow from panel to panel. The action sequences are great, and the characters continue to have, nice large expressions, which help me identify with them more. And overall it does have this, really cool animated series look to it. And for some reason or another, the more I look at Marcus, the more I see Willem Dafoe. And now I can't unsee it. So at the very end of it, interesting story, good artwork, and I need more werewolf vampire rednecks. And with that, I'm gonna give Rogue Sun issue number 2 an 8.5 out of 10. So Rogue Sun issue number 2, what did you think about this book? If you've read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you like this video, I'd love it if you'd smash that like button, share it with some friends, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and ring that notification bell for more comic book content. And if you're wondering what to watch next, consider one of these 2 videos. Alright. Take care, have a great day, and as always, stay geeky.